series on the topic Redefining Nourishment, making ancient grains relevant for the 21st century. Let's begin the session by a silent prayer. I request everyone to rise for the prayer. Thank you. Now I invite Mr. Aljis Khalid, Vice President, Chair Program KMA, for the welcome address and to introduce the speaker.
President Mr. Babson, our Chief Guest for the day, Mr. Prashant Parameswaran, Joint Secretary Anil Verma, fellow members, and all the participants. One second. Okay. Good evening to everyone. It's with great enthusiasm that I welcome you all to the 6th session of the Inspire series. This evening we gather to explore the topic of immense significance, one that connects our well-being, culture heritage, and future sustainability. Redefining nourishment, making ancient grains relevant for the 21st century. In today's world, where we face complex challenges relevant to nutrition, climate changes, sustainability, health, the food consumed by us plays a pivotal role. It shapes our individual lives, our communities, and the environment we share. Tonight, we embark on a journey to discover the wisdom of ancient grains and examine how these time-honored staples can be reimagined to meet the demands of modern life, all while nurturing the ecosystem that sustains us. I'm delighted to introduce our distinguished speaker for the evening, Mr. Prashant Parameswaran, a visionary leader at the helm of Soulful, a brand under the TATA Consumer Products. Prashant's academic journey spans prestigious institutions like the PSD College of Technology in Coimbatore in India and Babson College in USA, which equipped him with strong foundation in both technology and entrepreneurship. With over 2 decades of experience across diverse sectors, Prashant demonstrated remarkable expertise in understanding consumer behavior, driving product innovation, and navigating market dynamics. His leadership at Tata Consumer Products has redefined the way traditional grains like millets and oats are perceived and consumed, making them integral to contemporary diets while honoring their heritage. His unwavering commitment to nutrition and sustainability places him at the forefront of the movement that resonates deeply with today's health and environmental concerns. On a personal note, it is indeed a great pleasure to introduce Prashant as a son of my dear friend, family friend Babu and Lata Parameswaran, who hails from a highly respected and reputed family in Munkombo. They are here today, brimming and with pride to listen to his son, our prodigy, here sitting here. Prashant, you have made them proud. I also had the honor and privilege of working with Prashant during the early 2000s when we served as the President and Secretary of the Kerala chapter of Indian Cellular Association at its inception. Having witnessed his conscientiousness and the dedication firsthand, I can confidently attest to his unwavering pursuit of excellence and his ability to turn any endeavor into great success. This evening, Prashant will share his insights on bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern dietary needs, offering perspectives on the challenges and opportunities in making these grains an integral part of our everyday lives. Please join me in for a warm and enthusiastic welcome to dynamic and inspiring Mr. Prashant Parameswaran. Today also marks the culmination of 6 months of activity in the this KMA year. I'm delighted to share that this is the 6th Inspire series and the 30th program of the program committee, an average of almost one per week and more than double the number we had the entire KMA year last year. It has been immensely fulfilling to bring speakers from diverse fields of management, business and leadership, and to see consistent participation of 80 to 100 members week after week. If you all have enjoyed the study sessions as much as I have in arranging the speakers from different fields or on diverse topics in management, business and leadership, I encourage you to bring along more friends in KMA and motivate more people to join KMA. There is no other association in Kochi or even in Kerala where such a vibrant group gather every week to engage with thought leaders in management and leadership. On behalf of President Bibu, I assure you that as Robert Frost wrote, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, and the second half of KMA year promises to be even more exciting. Rest assured, the best is yet to come. Your continued encouragement and participation with a packed hall at every event will inspire us together achieve even greater heights. Before we proceed to the much awaited, anticipated talk, I would like to extend a heartfelt welcome to all the persons present here, especially our respected past presidents, managing committee members. I can see Deepak here, I can see around here quite a few people, and students and KMA members. Thank you all for being part of this remarkable journey. For further proceedings, I now invite our President, Mr. Bibu Pularan, to deliver the presidential address. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Mr. Bibu B. Punaran, President KMA, for the presidential address.
Chief guest of the day, Mr. Prashant Parameswaran, Program Committee Chair, Mr. Alumnus, Joint Secretary, Mr. Anil Verma, Managing Committee members, past presidents, dear students and dear KMA members, a warm good evening once again to you. As was just mentioned by our Program Committee Chair, this happens to be the 30th program for this KMA year. We started in June. We started officially on the 3rd of June, and here now today on the 29th of November, we are completing our 30th program for this year, which is a sort of record for KMA. And more than that, I'm really pleased that today we have, to mark this occasion, we have an inspiring speaker with us, because this year, the beginning of this year, we had already said that we would dedicate the last Friday of every month for our youth, and we would call that an Inspire series, wherein a youth speaker or accomplished man or woman from industry would be addressing our youth so that they would be ready to take on life as it comes along and take on business or entrepreneurship. So for you people sitting out there, we have an accomplished man, young person sitting here who's going to inspire you today evening. And I'm sure that your parents are there, Prashant, your parents are there, proud parents I would say, and all of the KMA members who are there, who will also be inspired despite their ages. Because I was speaking to him for about half an hour in the room before we came out, and actually I was inspired by whatever he said during that short period that we spent together. Now, coming to the topic, I think he will speak more on that. I should not be speaking anything on, the food industry, because I'm not in no way connected with the food industry. Everything is, I know how to consume something. Apart from that, nothing. But then, there are small snippet that he gives regarding India, the vastness of India, the way they sell their products and all that. And I think that's going to be an inspiring story in the way we should market ourselves, whichever industry we come from. And I think getting into the millet space, which is probably the biggest fight that the current Prime Minister also is trying to push into the Indian psyche, is great for a company that is now acquired by the Tatas or funded by the Tatas. And more than anything, I feel that a company born and bred in Kerala, which was eyed by the biggest industry or the biggest industrialists in India, that is the Tatas, took this over from a youngster. Of course, your parents are old, I know, but then and then now he runs that as the CEO. I think before he even starts, we should be giving such people a lot of accolades, and I think he deserves a round of applause. It's not small. It's not small. The funding part, or eyeing a big company, eyeing a company like that. It's only because of the quality of the product, the quality of the service, the quality of the reach of the product. That is only how a brand can be built. Building a brand is not a joke. So brand building is the biggest thing that Mr. Prashant has been able to do, and he's still doing justice to that by marketing his products across the villages of interior India. Because for those of you who have traveled across India, into interior India, you will realize that Kerala is perhaps, I don't know why, see, some people have, the tourism department has termed Kerala as God's own country, but only if you go to other places we would really, because if you go to say places like maybe Europe or Dubai and all that, we would think, are we really God's own country? But then when we go to other parts of India, we will realize that we are truly God's own country. And selling such products, so like see the American breakfast as an example, if you look at the cornflakes or the products that you sell, getting into the average villager's breakfast table is a major challenge, which he has taken up, and he is doing it very, very nicely and properly, and is getting a large market share. So I wouldn't want to keep Prashant from you. So I once again welcome you, Prashant, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation to come over. And I'm sure that you're going to be inspiration for everyone sitting in the room, especially the youngsters. But despite their ages, I'm sure that everyone sitting in the room are going to be inspired by your talk. And we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time for the much-awaited moment. I invite Prashant Parameswaran, President, Soulful, TATA Consumer Products, for the keynote address.
I don't know if it's my feeling, but I just feel my chest just blew up. So thank you so much. But it's very difficult for me to call Mr. Algis, so I'll call you Algis uncle if you don't mind. But I think thank you so much for very, very kind introduction that you had done, and Ms. Bubu, we had a very, very nice conversation along with Mr. Anil as well. So thank you so much for having me here. And what I try to do, and if you get bored of my face, you can look at that screen. I'll let you also toggle through. But what I try and cover today and during this entire piece is try and give you a little bit sense in terms of the journey, a broad macro context, get into a little bit of food, get into food in a very slightly different way, and hopefully have a little bit of AV content as well, and so that you can really get yourself into a feel of how you look at it. And my request, especially to the youngsters in the audience, is, and youngsters can be either by age or by heart, depends on how you look at it, is to really think of how do you look at a problem and how do you potentially look at it in a slightly different way. We had some very interesting conversations, and hopefully, if you enjoy that book that I was talking about, I think there is something there that I think the youngsters will definitely enjoy. So let me just get a little bit quickly get started into this, right? So there are a million such taps in this country. You open them, there's no water, and this is reality. Climate change is absolutely, absolutely real. There is no going away from this. The question is, how does one combat it? There are articles and articles and articles. This has been spoken about for 20, 30 years, and it's reality. How are we really going to go about it? How are we going to address it? I do not think there is a magic pill. The question is, how do we start contributing positively toward that? And that really is where food comes into play. Because food and consuming any form of food that really can help you combat it. Is it going to solve? It's not going to solve. Right? It's going to be a sum of parts. It's going to be a lot of other things that are there. It could be emissions, it could be food, it could be each of those pieces. And food really can play a huge part. And that to me was a large piece for our inspiration. And that's where really the power of these ancient millets comes in. I don't know how many of you, and thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister, I think a lot of us know a lot more about millets than we used to 10 years ago when we started this journey. 1 kg of rice that all of us consume takes 4,000 liters from the ground. The tanker there is usually around 1,500 to 2,000 liters. So for every 1 kg of rice that you put on your table, it's taken 4,000 liters from the ground. 1 kg of millets takes 400 from the sky. 4,000 from the ground, 400 from the sky. That's the kind of impact. There are 1 billion plus people can say, what's the real number, etc. But just start doing the math. And you can just see the small little impact that it can start doing. These are really smart foods. I very simplistically put the difference between superfood and smart food. Superfood, I call it selfish foods. Foods that's just good for you. Smart foods are foods that are good for you, good for the planet, and good for the farmer. This not just provides you a high amount of nutrition, great amount of calcium, great minerals, low glycemic index, which will really help you control your diabetes and all of that, which is the good for you part. But I think the part in terms of what it does for the farm, what it does for the environment, really starts contributing in a very, very strong way. And that's why these foods were also selected by the UN, promoted by India, very proud that India FAO went, they lobbied through it, and we've seen quinoa, we've seen pulses, we've seen soybean, we've seen all of this being as international years. International Year of Millet was actually run, completely sponsored by the Indian government, which and actually has made a large noise in the global landscape. So what does Soulful really do? And if there's one thing that I can request you to just think of it, is this one slide. This slide has been with me for 10 years, I keep changing it, so end of December, I will make that 2024, 2025. Right? So that's essentially how this slide goes. But essentially it's taking a grain that is 2000 BC and making it relevant for the 21st century, 2024 today. Right? How do you take an old grain and how do you make it relevant in today's day and life? And this is a simplistic way of how I can describe it. Because for any product that we make, anything that any of us would do in our businesses is how do you be relevant to a consumer or your customer. Quickly, if I just zoom out and just look at food for a second, and just look at what are some of the mega trends, because in any industry you've got to understand what are your trends that are really there, what is it that's really shaping your entire business, right? The 4 real big trends that are happening in food. One is what we call mindfulness, which is the health and wellness area, looking at what are the kind of importance of the ingredients that are being used. The second really is functional foods, and really looking at our nutrition and what kind of foods, what kind of nutrition is there. The third is really eating at home, what I call 2.0. 1.0 was when it was COVID, when everybody came back home. People started really looking at their pantry and saying, okay, wait, I need to really start looking at what I'm consuming, because whatever vaccine, whatever is out there is really going to really save me to an extent. I've got to take care of myself. And then really is the fourth, which is the massive, massive one, which is the snackification of food. Gone were those days of those 3 big meals, 2 big meals. Some people are on intermittent, some people are on 5 meals, 7 meals, it's different meals, but it's essentially, it's a lot of snackification. Small portions and a number of portions of them. And that's really a large trend. These are really things that are riding and really changing. And with this, really there's a large consumption shift that's happening. And this is where, for companies such as us, right, brands such as mine, we're really able to really capitalize, because people who are coming in from, this is how we're going to structure, we're going to be finding it very, very difficult to adapt to this. Lot of questions were being asked about why. Why is something being made in this way? Why is this ingredient on your pack? We started with a clean slate and we really looked at this. We started having a lot of implications on food. When we looked at, Soulful in terms of our relevance, right, really I look at what is our answer? Our answer in terms of how do we provide healthy and natural products, nutritious products for our consumers? By having a differentiated approach, by really looking at foods and ingredients that your grandmothers would have. And in a very, very simplistic way, it is how do I take what is made in your kitchen, how do we make it in our factories, how do we make it in the same way that we would give our own children. Today, I am proud to have Soulful be a part of Tata Consumer, which is essentially the proud brand owners of Desh Ka Namak and Desh Ka Chai, which is Tata Tea and Tata Salt. To me, what is very, very interesting is this actually provides us the ability to really build further and go deeper into what we've been able to do. The first 10 years was one part of the journey, and essentially what we're able to do on this partnership with Tata Consumer is to really be able to double down deep, go deeper in our research, go deeper in terms of what we're able to do, and we'll talk a little bit in terms of what our entire piece is. To me, this is what I'm most proud about, which is from Desh Ke Chai, Desh Ke Namak to Desh Ke Millets. And how do I essentially be able to take millets, which is not just for some parts of the country, but able to take it across the entire thing through an entire portfolio. Right? So that's just to give you a little bit of a feel. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand this part, everything else is a piece. So this was just to give you a little bit of prelude in terms of why, what, and at a broad level. So if I just look at our consumers and look at it from understanding what our consumers are really all about and our offerings towards this. Soulful is a very, very rare brand. I get a lot of questions, a lot of times. So there's a very, very few companies that have a single brand that goes across all consumer age groups. And I could actually really challenge that there are not too many brands that would go across age groups. And it's a very, very difficult marketing proposition, and to essentially have a better for you offering for the entire family. Two key consumer groups that we really look at. Slightly busy slide, but if you can just look at the child and if you can look at the adults, they're not interconnected. They're two different parts. If you look at that, right, and how do you ensure that you're able to make great tasty food and fun for your child, which is guilt-free for the mom as well. At the same time, you have a young India, which is really around aspirational, all about trying to find what he or she really wants to be able to punch above his or her own weight. And that's really the two age groups of consumers that we go across and we straddle through. As we look at this, and just to give you a perspective, right, in our kids, we actually have a mascot which is called Cruncha Mancha. I don't know how many of you, so this was really inspired. Okay, I'll just go into a slight Angrez or English version. There's a There's a series called Calvin and Hobbes. I mean, it's very, very interesting because how does, so mom and child is a very interesting friction, and I still have that friction with my mom, right? But that friction doesn't go. It's a very, very interesting friction because mom wants good, child wants bad. Mom wants good, child wants bad. And bad can be defined as naughtiness or whatever. But at the same time, everybody is innately good. And what we have is, and if you've read Calvin and Hobbes, essentially it's that one which is kind of holding that together. And that's how we use the mascot. The mascot we use very, very cutely and sweetly as a way for the mom to talk to the child in a way that they all enjoy. And that's really what we've got as a mnemonic. And really taking that and going across our entire portfolio and what we've been able to then build out through our entire snacking portfolio. As much as people will say breakfast cereal, there is this ragi bites, this box, it's a very small percentage of our business. We'll not go around changing that, but essentially snacking is where our entire business is. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. And as we look at our adults, essentially taking our no junk portfolio, right? And how do you create that as a platform and take that across? As much as we have that entire piece of our breakfast and our mini meals or occasions that are there, and going through our entire portfolio, right? Some of these products you would have seen, some of them you will not see, some of them we may launch, we may not will launch here. But then we have a very, very clear approach of how we are going at it. But we're essentially taking a no junk approach and going through that entire portfolio. So if we talk about Desh Ke Millets is great, right? But if you have to talk about Desh Ke Millets, it's about essentially making millets mainstream. And how do you really take this millets mainstream? And how do you make anything mainstream? Simple mantras that we have: high quality products, affordable price points, ease of accessibility, and ensuring that it's cool to have millets. And if you actually see, it's in the 4 Ps. I didn't realize that it was around the 4 Ps, but it's essentially that. And when we talk about high quality products, it's not just in nutrition. We are not, and I state this very, very often with my R&D team, we are in the business of food, we are not in the business of drugs. We're not a pharmaceutical company. Our job is to provide nutrition, but the consumer essentially comes for taste. And so how do you ensure that you have a taste first and a health forward approach? Ensuring that taste, because taste is the one thing, right? Sujit Uncle or Dr. Sujit, as you can say, can keep prescribing things for you, but you're not going to go back and constantly have that. At the same time, if I'm able to give you food that's good for you and it tastes right, you'll keep going back and buying it and eating it. And that's essentially where taste really starts playing as a very, very important piece. At the same time, keeping a very, very health forward and being very focused on that. And affordable price points. We have this very interesting conversation that's there, right, around magic price points. 5 rupee, 10 rupee, 15 rupees. These are our essential price points. This one slide is 80-90% of my business. Right? This is what we do a lot of. And Deepak Uncle, you'll know, I mean, you're in this business, you know how a lot of these magic price points are there. And this is not about, selling in the Nilgiris next door or selling in Lulu. This is like 0.001% of the population. Right? I'm more interested in selling in rural 1 lakh plus towns, and because that's where the mass of India really stands. Across 5 rupee, 10 rupee and 15 rupee price points, how do you then provide? Because providing that accessibility becomes very, very important, because today's India, and we were talking a lot about this, I have $100, but I have an aspiration for $2,000. I want to buy so many things, I want to do so many things, but I don't have the money to do every single thing. So which is, how do I then get small bit pieces of every single experiential moment that I'm able to get? And that's really what the magic price point is about. The Western world says the magic price point is a way to people to start and do trials. In other words, I get to try a product. We have a very different approach. We say no. They will try and they will constantly consume at these price points. Because I, as a consumer, want choices. Today I want to buy, let's say, a detergent for $5. Tomorrow I want to buy something else. Tomorrow I want to buy a cookie. And I want to be able to buy as many across with whatever disposable income that I have. And that's where really the magic price point in India becomes important. We've seen brands for, I don't know, I mean, we were talking about cabin care, chick shampoo, even from there to even today. It's still a very, very relevant point. And I think it becomes even more and more relevant, especially if we go to central and northern parts of India. It becomes even more important. At the same time, so as you've got your accessibility, you've got the product quality, is to be able to really provide the distribution that is required, being able to have that accessibility. And when I actually say Kashmir to Kanyakumari, that's why this entire piece, right, is across from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. And how do you then provide, not just have these, great products in fancy stores, here and there, some price points, but be able to really build out in distribution. I don't take pride with 5 lakh plus numbers. I do not, right? So I know that in 2 years we'll be in around 10 lakh plus stores, right? So how do you really build out that distribution? Because that is where really the entire meat of India really lies. And I'm just going to play, this is a small retailer in Jharkhand. I just want you to hear this video. I can ask you to just increase the volume. Just get you to listen to this video and just hear what he says. Can you, is it over? I don't know, just how.
अच्छा भैया, जैसे हम आपको अभी रागी बाइट टेस्ट कराए, कैसा लगा आपको?
बहुत ही बेहतरीन टेस्ट है।
मतलब रागी का मड़ुआ का बना हुआ है तो
मड़ुआ का बना हुआ रागी है तो बहुत ज्यादा, तो आज के डेट में जो मैदा से ही सब कुछ खा रहे हैं, तो रागी जाएगा तो शरीर में बेनिफिट देगा, लेकिन मैदा का तो खत्म।
Right, so this is a small retailer in Jharkhand, right? And he's talking about, and if you saw what he said, he said ragi, but immediately went to madua. He went to madua. Ragi equal to nachni equal to madua. There are so many of them, right? And what I find very interesting when you go into rural parts, for them to see ragi, jawar, bajra really making this comeback, for them it's an awe-inspiring moment for them, and they're saying, wow, you're able to bring the grain that I grew and you're bringing it back. You're not using maida. And that entire affinity, that consumption story is something that's a very, very inspiring piece. So as we do this, right, and as you start doing a lot around this, but making village school becomes very important, right? Because I'm trying to be politically correct also. We have it's like, even in a dosa, and I'll maybe use that as an example, I'll use rice. We like white rice versus red rice. We like a white dosa as against a brown dosa. And I think that's also why Fair and Lovely exists and doesn't exist. Right? We have this problem. When we look at ragi, jowar, bajra, we say, poor man's crop, can't eat. I have money now, right? I've become rich, I have money, I don't want to eat this. So it becomes very, very important for us to also reposition this of saying, hey, this is not a poor man's crop. And I think a lot of the times we try to brush aside, saying I don't want to, acknowledge this fact. And I think that's where a lot of the mistakes happen. It's better to just acknowledge and say, this is a problem, let's address that. Let's address the fact that we need to make this cool. We need to ensure that, people don't feel that, it's a drudgery about eating these meals. And that becomes a very, very important piece from a marketing perspective. I'm not going to play all our ads and all of that, but if I can, I'm just going to play 2 ads for you, and just for you to get a feel in terms of how do you, we started at a tap, right, which was not giving you water, to a 5 rupee, 10 rupee, 15 rupee price point. Because at the end of the day, the core philosophy is, I'm coming to buy food. With that food, and as you provide me great taste, then give me all the other benefits, right? And that's really what we are really building towards. If you can play the first ad.
Cruncha mancha, in the TATA Soulful Choco Sticks, Kiblo chocolate hai ikar.
Ronga chocolate.
Amma sapda kottanga, cheppedi. No maida.
Ragi bite.
TATA Soulful Choco Sticks leriki niraiya chocolate மற்றும் ராகியோட நன்மை அப்படினா ஒவ்வொரு பாட்டிலையும் நோட்டா chocolatey crunch. Yummy cheese மற்றும் நோட்டா stretchy wafers. TATA Soulful Ragi Bite cream wafers.
So that's just to give you how we really bring out the more fun part. It's not about, you don't see that tap, you don't see that water saving, you don't see all of that. It's about the child, it's about him or her wanting to have fun, and it's all about that, right? And that's how we actually use Cruncha Mancha, the mascot that we have. If I can just shift from there to something which is more on the younger adults, you can play that.
No tasty. क्या है?
Masala.
ये
इतना नॉन स्टिकी इम्पॉसिबल
Tata Soulful Masala Oats Plus. Oats Plus 25% crunchy millets, 100% real veggies और देसी मसाले. Tata Soulful Masala Oats Plus. Non sticky must taste जबरदस्त. अब यही non sticky मसाला oats दाल के साथ. Tata Soulful Masala Oats Plus दाल शक्ति.
So I'll also give you another piece of an insight. And so as we have all of these things layering inside each of our categories, and so the two pieces that you just saw. So one, which is the choco sticks and that entire thing. So children always had a problem. They would go give their pocket change of $5, etc. I said, I would go buy it, but when I open it, the whole thing is crumbled. It's a very disappointing thing, right? I mean, imagine you give your pocket money, you open and the whole thing is crumbling in. You say, how do I then take millets? How do we then power it? Because very hardy grains, right? It's actually very hardy grain. How do you take your, what I say, a weakness, and how do you convert that to your strength and provide a stick that doesn't actually break? Right? And to me, that is a great thing at what we really did. Similarly, if you looked at the masala oats, right, consumers said, we really love it. So I was very interesting when we were doing our consumer immersions. Moms and women were saying, we made this, then something happens in the house, I have to run, do something, but by the time I come back, this whole thing becomes gooey and becomes very thick because it's all dried up. It's a very classic problem, right? I'm allowing it to cool, but the whole thing is thick. And it's becoming, so then when I'm eating it, it's become like a very gooey, I've lost the entire thing. And so what we then did, and if you remember, millets use less amount of water. Why? Because they don't absorb it as easy. We basically used that which is a product piece and brought that back into the strength, and we provided them into a non-sticky bite, and which is you give them a bite piece, you give them a feel. And so how do you then play around everything, which is the sensorial parts as well? And that's really what we've been approaching. So that just to give you a frame, and again I'm trying to give you a very, very wide landscape of piece, but then how do you take that particular piece, how do you bring that, how do you really redefine how you're looking at nourishment, and how do you do that? And with that is essentially how do you then build smart food, which is for a smarter generation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The session is now open for Q&A.
Hi, good evening. On a lighter note, I'm actually an investment consultant. So what I'm going to do on Monday is that I am going to buy Tata Consumer and recommend my clients to buy more, because seeing the kind of vision, your focus and the strength of your portfolio, I think that is going to be, and it is a 3-year low. Stock is at a 3-year low also. So coming to my question, I'm really happy to see the focus on the protein side, because I've not seen a protein bread in Cochin. So request you to please bombard the Cochin outlets with protein bread. So as a country, we are undernourished in protein. So please focus more on protein. And I would like to say your views on the organic side of the products, because that is again emerging. Brands like Tata can come with, because what is organic? In India, the standards are low. So if a brand like Tata comes with organic, we can trust. So that is one area. And another challenge as a consumer that we face is that I recently happened to look at, I'm a fan of millets for years. I was trying to look at millet biscuits. So if you look at the ingredients, most of the guys don't give the ingredients, the percentage breakup of grains. If somebody is given, it is hardly 5% or 10%. If you look at a multi-grain product, 5 to 10% will be millets, the rest remaining wheat or rice. So just put pressure on the regulators. If somebody comes with a multi-grain, at least 50 to 75% will be a good quality grain. And finally, I'm a great fan of Tata Himalaya water. But unfortunately, the last 1 week I'm searching in outlets in Cochin. We don't have Tata mineral water available in Cochin. Or even the guys who are doing like Ajpan or a host or a bed well, they're not doing it. So please push your guys who are looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think nice series of comments. Interestingly, today we were in the market. Obviously, when you're in the market with the CEO and the COO and all of them, all products are there, in full swing. But I can completely understand that. I'll answer some parts, different picks, pick different pieces. Let me hit the organic one first. Most millets, not most, pretty much all millets are grown organically, right? because they are actually very, very hardy crops. So most of them are grown organically at the farm level. At the same time, I also come from, and I think this is where the ethos with the Tata Group also comes in, is unless I get full certification, which essentially means that the crop or the field should never have been used, no pesticides should have been used on the field, whether it is for this or the other crops in the other season, is a tough one for us to do, at least from Millet's perspective. Second is my factory needs to be completely organic. And let me go one more level. In the US, when we used to do organic certification, the floor cleaning is organic, right? The mop used is organic, right? So, but that's the level. And you can imagine in India that just, I won't be able to sell. I'll be able to sell like, I don't know, half a gram for 5 rupees, right? So the cost would really escalate. But the third part, you're absolutely right on organic. And in fact, I don't know if you've been following the stock, there's a brand called Organic India that was acquired by Tata Consumer. Very interesting brand, in Barabanki, in UP. Very interesting brand, and that's really the organic play from a Tata Consumer perspective. So that's just to give you. On the other part on ingredients, I'm with you 150%. So let me give you a small example of rusk. Right? So we've launched rusk in Delhi, UP East West, MP, Orissa, Bihar, Chhattisgarh we've not yet gone, and West Bengal. Right? We've done that, if you see that segment. On average, rusk has 60 to 80% maida. Right? I said, why? Nobody's asked that question. And it's funny, right? Nobody's asked that question. I said, boss. So, for us, it's like that, you know, that no smoking sign is there. Like that we have a no maida sign, right? Which is, of course, there's no maida in any of our products, period. It's not a conversation, right? For the last 1 year, we actually put our head down. We actually 2.5 years. Now we put our head down, we said, let's work to develop a product which has no maida, powered through millets. It has the crumbling problem, right? All of that. And we've been able to launch out our rusk, which is there across. And what are we doing there is we are leveraging our chai heritage, which is Tata Tea Premium, Tata Tea Gold. We're leveraging on that and actually launched through that. So I'm a big believer in ingredients and trying to be able to ensure that you don't bring the nasties in.
Oh, so my question is, can I have?
Yeah, please.
My question is, first, congratulations for a lot of research your organization is doing, avoiding crumbling, avoiding the gooiness and all that. Now my question is, masala dosa is one of the favorite breakfast item whole of India. Have you thought of in your research how to come with a ragi masala dosa which can beat the taste of a conventional masala dosa, which you get in Woodlands and other places?
So there were a set of guys who had done this. In fact, in CFTR, they even had a machine that was making this. My simple response to you is I don't think we've been successful of cracking it. Because at the end of the day, when I'm going to eat that masala dosa, I have a taste profile in my mind. So if you don't beat that profile, you've basically lost that battle. I don't think we've been successful enough, and so at least that way, I don't know if it's also a way for the research team to ensure that they have a job for tomorrow morning. But basically they have to keep at it. So unfortunately, not been successful yet at it. So.
Okay. It was Mr. Prashant, it was an excellent presentation, and I like the sessions subject connected to the food, because I like my main interest is food only. But the thing is, my question, before asking the question, I'll give some background. Kerala is changing, Kerala is improving, more business people are appearing, and this startup in Kerala compared to India, it is far and higher. All over India, it is success rate is 2.2 to 3%. Now, but here I understand it is 25 to 30% success rate. So people are, so many young students with business mind, they are sitting here. So my question is, entrepreneur, a business owner is becoming the CEO of an organization. That is my question. How it happened? What is your explanation to them? One part I understand, I get visualize that it is great. It is something you are interested to the great businessman, business owner, TATA. That everything will be solved. It will reach a great place. That I can understand. But what will be your explanation to young business people to this one? A business owner becoming a CEO of that organization.
So if I may just clarify that I understood your question right, sir, is you're saying this whole transition from being an owner of a business to being a CEO of a business in a larger company. Would that be a fair clarification of what you are asking?
Yeah, you are in the business.
Yeah. So, the definition of CEO is Chief Everything Officer in my mind. Right? So these are all titles. Sometimes somebody is, but what is your title? Suppose I am the pew. Anything gets stuck anywhere, I have to move the paper. So I actually think it's a mindset. I don't think of it of saying, as a business owner, this. So, and I think the other is, I as much as I look at the West or America, I think it's important to look at what are right and take the right things. I think they've got a beautiful way of looking at ownership and management. Right? They keep the ownership at the balance sheet, and then there's management, which is everyday. Right? So there is a cap table, which is the equity and that entire piece, and they keep the two different. And I think if you keep that in your mind and say, there's a responsibility for you to run. And today, in fact, I jokingly say this in the internal conversations, is I'm the entrepreneur in residence, right? So which is essentially, for them it is like saying, how do you drive entrepreneurship within the organization? Because everybody wants people to actually take ownership. They don't want, just people coming in, taking a nice fancy salary and going. Right? How do you really build through and take ownership in what you're running? That's how I look at it.
Thank you.
I just understood that Prashant has been invited by Harvard Business School on this same subject of ownership, president, management. That's OPM. So he's going to be there in 2025 to answer that particular question.
Okay.
So it's
Excellent.
even Harvard is curious about it.
Prashant, I just want to say that you spoke very well, very succinct. I think even for someone who's a layperson like me, it was very, very clear. Just one question, it's all organic you were talking about, but everything has a shelf life, right? So how do you get that shelf life?
So it's very, so it's my ma'am and we have a very different relationship. I only every time remember coming, if she's calling me, then it's always usually I'm in trouble. I would have done something, so, but this one I'm not in trouble. Not this time, this one I'm not in trouble, that I can assure you. So it's a very interesting one again, and I think it also comes from the fact that when you come from outside of the industry, I don't come from a food science background, I don't come from a manufacturing, I don't have that mindset. And I think the questioning why, right? And I think it becomes very, and I'm just saying this also for a larger audience because maybe nobody is going to get into food, somebody will get into food. But I think it's just about the mindset of how you approach something. The way we looked at, and I think the amount of time I would have spent on shelf life, the first capital investment I made in my lab was on 2 stability chambers, as we call it. Right? Because very quickly I realized that this was going to be one of my largest issues. Before I even actually put machines, it was stability chambers. And stability chambers is where you actually simulate external climatic conditions for internal, so you can keep going at it. This is actually where packaging technology is very, very important. And so, in fact, my cost of packaging, if I have to very simply say, is way higher than it should ideally be. And that's the peril of where I'm at. At the same time, from pricing, I have a premium because of what we offer. And that's how I'm able to match my entire piece. So really how we approach it is through packaging and through an entire amount of packaging development. So unfortunately, but what happens, for example, if I wanted to do, let's say, a paper-based packaging, I cannot do that, because then I will have to really bring in. So I'll have to make those very, very judicious calls. That doesn't mean I don't go for sustainable packaging, but I can't go sustainable, let's say, from a absolutely 100% recyclable, if you will.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I have the mic? I really normally don't need a mic, but Prashant, I looked at one of the first slides that you said about glycemic index. And as an aside, please try to make the answer a little shorter than my question. They are worried about glycemic index because the blowing up of non-communicable diseases in our country, especially in Kerala, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, heart disease, what have you. And that's got a lot to do with genetics as well as the environment. And one of the reasons is that we have very high carbohydrate content diet. I mean, look at breakfast, it's idli, dosa, it's all rice-based. Lunch is rice. Night people say chapati, I have chapati, but we know that chapati, calorie for calories, almost the same as rice, maybe a little bit more nutritious. How do you position, of course, this is a new style of eating, like cornflakes, or you give your ragi bites and oats and whatnot. But how do you position millet in the future? Like I remember when I was a student in Karnataka, we had something called ragi mudda, which was basically a ragi ball, which used to go with some pickle or savory. It was quite delicious. So, will we be ever able to substitute rice with millet in your opinion?
No, so I think there's some huge amount of work that's going on this entire piece of glycemic index control. Because the beauty is, as much as on a carbs to carbs basis, on a carbohydrate basis, it might be similar, the complex carb really plays very, very strongly for millets. There is a lot of work that's going on, clinical trials that's going on, because obviously if I have to say, helps control and reduces sugar. So I think there is a lot of work. I believe that there will be a series of people who will actually make some breakthroughs over the next few years, and I think that's when really will come. Why did oats, and I was explaining this today to somebody who's from Delhi, saying, why is everybody in Kerala eating so much oats? And it was simply because of the cholesterol. Right? So unless you're able to come up with something like that, I don't think we're able. So it's not a chicken and egg. I actually think you have to bring that diabetic claim in for people to actually consume it a lot more. Especially at the slightly older age, if you would, and for people who are trying to control their sugar levels.
Hi, Prashant. I was introduced to your product probably 10 years ago or so, and to ragi probably closer to 20 years ago through my trips to mostly Karnataka is where I was introduced to it. Could you go into a little bit about how you've, I guess, spread the word on the use of ragi and perhaps give a little bit of insight as to the adoption over time as your product has grown? And then have you given any thought to distributing it through like Patel Brothers in the USA or anything like that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think two things. So I think this also connects to what I was talking about. The minute we talk about food that is healthy, the immediate inclination is it's not going to be tasty. Again, I like to take certain things head on, saying that's reality. So for the first 8 to 10 years, all our marketing was in what we call sampling. Just making people taste product. I don't want to talk, taste product, taste it, see, do you like it, then we talk. Right? Don't like it, it's okay, but taste it, like it, then we talk. And I think that's been something. Just to give you a sense, I think, we had close to 180 people on my payroll who who only used to do this. This is not my factory, not my sales team, nothing. It's 180 people on my payroll, only doing sampling day in, day out. Day in, day out. Even today, I need to do it, right? And I don't think that is, there's any shunning away from that. On Patel Brothers, yeah, it is there right now on the shelf. Because we do have a brand called Tetley, we have 8 o'clock coffee, we have all of that. So it goes into Patel Brothers, it doesn't go in as consistently as I'd like it. It's a little complicated from a logistics standpoint, but yeah.
Prashant, slightly out the topic in the sense, in all the research you've done, since millet were our ancient grains, have you been able to find out how we shifted from millets to rice and wheat? In any of your studies, I'm sure you would have come across.
Yeah, so it's an interesting piece. So in fact, this was also, we had very consciously, this is during the 70s, right, when we had very, very clearly taken a call where we promoted rice, wheat in India. All our agricultural policies moved towards that. And I believe it's very easy for us to sit now as armchair and say, oh my God, we killed millets. I think the need of that hour was absolutely needed, because at that time, we were talking about hunger satisfaction. And satisfying hunger was the primary cause. Today, as a country and as we have developed, when we have shifted from what I call hunger satisfaction to nutritional satisfaction, then we have started relooking and saying, okay, I've got my square meals in. Not for everybody, still there is a bottom strata of 75 to 120 million, everybody's got a different number who still have. And it's really those policies that are actually shifted. So if I actually look at the amount of hectares, the growing area dropped close to 70% with that policy changes. But it was the right thing. I mean, we brought in, if you remember, the Vietnamese rice institutes, we brought all of those hybriding rice in, we brought all of those in. But I think it was the right, I mean, anybody in that position would say, let's serve for the tummy first, then we will go for nutrition. And I think I call it a progression.
From an entrepreneur to the CEO of a TATA company, a big company, how your life has changed?
So I will now, I can, as long as it's not being recorded, I think it is. But anyway, the first thing is they made me open a provident fund account, which I was like, boss, don't cut my salary, give it to me. So that was the first thing. I think as much as you're the chief everything officer, learning to navigate through, in and out, learning not to step in at every single. As entrepreneurs or as businessmen, we just get in, fix it, right? I mean, if somebody is not even packing a carton box, I have no problem, I have zero ego, I'll pack it, right? If the person is not able to sell, I have no problem selling. The merchandiser doesn't clean, I have no problem taking out my handkerchief, cleaning. But then those are not repeatable, and how do you do? So I was having a beautiful conversation a few days back with a board member, and he said, how do you influence without doing? And that's a very powerful, because that's then you're actually able to do a lot more. So without you doing, how do you influence a larger group to do? Because then the sum of parts is larger than one. Hopefully that gives you a...
Hi Prashant. So my question is regarding the strategies that you have adopted. Like when you started manufacturing a product where it falls into a category where you have biggies like Kellogg's, and you knew that you are going against them. They've been there in the market for a long time, and they have a huge market share, and you were entering that space. So what were the core operational sales and marketing strategies that you adopted to reach this stage?
So I think what, sometimes we get very scared of these big companies. They are so lethargic, it is not even funny. It is not funny how lethargic. Change is the most difficult thing for them, right? For us, you can get up one morning and say, okay, now this is not working, let's do something else. For them it is board approval, taking approval, doing this, doing that. So they just take so much time. And I think and if there is one book that we have to keep reading, is David Goliath. We've got to keep reading that. Right? We've got to keep reading that again and again. And how do there is a beauty of being small. You're able to do things very differently, very distinctively, and you have to challenge the status quo. And I think, so first thing I did was I took price out of the equation, because their money and my money is not comparable. Right? My dad loves me, but Mr. Kellogg's has got way more than anybody's love, right? Or any of these companies. So how do you then really build through, and how do you very, very clearly say, these are the things I can fight on, these are the things I cannot fight on, and really changing the axis of the game, right? Shifting. So if you've read another book that I highly recommend, Blue Ocean Strategy, right? It says, how do you create that blue ocean, not fight in the red ocean? And it's very easy to get caught in the wrong side. So I think that's where you have to strategically be and be at it. And I think great perseverance of an entrepreneur cannot match that of any employee.
Excuse me, is the preservative and additive percentage less in your brand?
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is why I said grandmother approved. Right? Grandmother approved.
Hello Prashant, nice listening to you. Now my question is, this is out of curiosity. Is Soulful a lifestyle brand or any intentions of elevating into a lifestyle brand?
So,
because I seriously do not think that this is going to the masses. I somewhere see a very differentiated segment. I don't know how true it is, but I'm going to learn from you.
Sure. The beauty is, if I am able to convince you that it's a lifestyle segment, and if I'm able to continue to sell millets in villages, I think I've done my job. And I think that's why the choice of the name Soulful does. What Soulful means to you is not what it means to that retailer in Jharkhand. Right? Soulful is like Soulful. The brand name though goes for a toss, right? But ultimately for me the key is, if we have to make a difference of that tap, I have to make this mainstream. I cannot have this at top 10 million households, 20 million households. You need to have 150 to 200, there are 300 million households in India, right? If I'm not able to get to 150, 170, we're not moving millet consumption. We're not going to move that needle. So for me, it's very, very clear about making it mainstream. And I think that's where really the Tata brand name also is very, very important, because it really opens it up for me to be able to go to the masses.
One more question, because I have my students here and we have this consumer behavior course running, okay, and it's happening now. Now, whenever we talk about product development, we start with working on the consumer persona. We need to have that in mind. Now, I was very surprised to see your slides on the target group, wherein you have the kids and you have chocos for them, and then you have the adults. Wherein, when I hear about millets or when the image that comes into my mind is, it's my grandma, my grandmother. Because I have seen the senior citizens at home consuming, probably if you ask the crowd also, because we have a lot of senior citizens here, and wherein one day of the meal would be millets, of course, in any form. So how does this consumer persona, like it happened to your, I don't know, maybe from your market researches, but then how did this kids category? That is interesting. But kids category come into your mind? Like where did it all start from? How did you initially started out your research? Because this is not that easy thing to cut across. With Soulful definitely, but then how did you all start with?
So it's like driving from here to Munnar. Right? I went like this. I made all you're seeing is all the good stuff. Okay? So before I reached this, I must have had some 15 failure products right through that journey. So I think it was a journey. To be very, very honest, I've done a lot of stuff. We even put the first pack, which I didn't even put a product photo on the front of the pack. He said, why should we put it? People will understand flop. Like that, we had a lot of flops, right, in that process. But I think why we did kids was, to the point that you mentioned. But before we go to kids, let me go back to you have a perception and how you have of ragi, but did you see my communication?
Yeah.
If you saw the communication, we were talking about that choco sticks which had no maida, right? It's yummy, it's chocolatey. You saw that husband and wife or partners, as my team tells us, who says it's husband and wife, could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, living home together in a bowl, enjoying a bowl of masala ochen, right, with millets. We never spoke about the drudgery of millets. We spoke about food. Right? So the minute you, and communication, that's the other thing, right? You control the narrative. You're not leaving that narrative to the consumer. So you have to say it. The reason that we actually did kids, Ragi/Nachni, and South is actually we have a very, very good brand equity in the South. During a lot of our consumer research, grandmothers, aunts told moms, new moms, to give the ragi koi or the equivalent of that. Her association with ragi was very strong. Because again, she said, my mother, my aunt or grandmother told me to give this, and everybody had their own recipe, by the way. Everybody put it sun-dried, this, put it from your left pocket, right pocket. Everybody had a recipe, right? But everybody knew that boss was ragi, to get my child to be full-born this. But after 18 months, the first 18 months, it's a drop-off.
Yes.
It's a complete drop-off. So I'm like, boss, wait. So basically I've already got a person who says ragi is very good. She's fed the child, right? And obviously the child is thrown up, all that stuff has happened. But this person is already convinced. Mom is a gatekeeper, right? At some level she's a gatekeeper. I said, wait, let's play on that strength. Right? If you get the gatekeeper, because today we say ragi, mom's like, chalo, have this. No, I don't want you to have anything else. Oh, by the way, this has no maida also, has much lesser sugar, no preservative, She's like, please. And then it's out down to the child, right? And if the child doesn't like the taste, then bad luck, we've lost the race. So I think that's really where the mom and child piece really came in, and that's where it became important. Cruncha Mancha, the monster, has also evolved over time. And if the packs that you see today, by April or May, you'll see a full revamp, right? The packs will get much more colorful. It will be a lot more, because now we say, wait, the mom is fully convinced, we need to be on the child. We need to now focus on the child, because the mom's she's on our camp, right? We have to just focus on the child. Sorry, long story, but because you're in consumer retail.
Prashant, I've read a lot about Alumnus School of Engineering for its uniqueness. I won't go into details. But you're studying in the Alumnus School of MBA. Has it influenced in any way your way of thinking?
I guess studying always has an impact in how you think, right from school.
No, it's the Alumnus way of MBA different from others like the Alumnus School of Engineering?
So I wouldn't be able to draw a parallel between the engineering and the MBA, but I can draw a parallel between Babson, Alumnus School of Management, and other schools of management. It's the CEO, Chief Everything Officer. We have one case. We have strategy, HR, finance, marketing, everything happens on that one case. And our professors are very clear. You're going to be running a business, which doesn't mean that you have each department doing their own thing. You need to know everybody's job. So we were, Babson is known for entrepreneurship, is known for a very different style of teaching. Even though it's a case study, it's one case that goes across all functions, right? Marketing, strategy. So that's a very, very different style. And I think that definitely has an impact because I think all of my classmates are running businesses. Nobody is employed anywhere, if you will.
Ma'am, just to answer your question, actually, I after having talked to Prashant, I was just, not reading out from a script that I had prepared, because I had actually jotted down a few points and then the particular name of Soulful, I think, according to me, appeals to the Indian public because it's kind of charismatic. It's not just the food alone, it's also something for the soul, and I think predominantly the Indian is kind of religious and all that, so that's what I felt at least.
I think he's doing his job of educating. The lot of educational content has to go in first. So that's, again, we were very keenly watching on how before TATA took over, because Soulful has taken off most of the supermarkets and malls shelf. You had a fair share of their shelf. And so we were watching the brand grow, and then happy to see that Tata has, that is another set of strategy again. But then that growth was very, I don't know how much struggle you had, and then it's now that I also have understood that there were few brands or few products which you have launched earlier too. But then the way Soulful was displayed on any retail outlet, that fair share, no, that you have it's very prominent in all the shelves there. How did you manage to get all this? What is the struggle there?
So that I will be very honest. There is a lot of grit to it. And also thanks to the teachings that both my parents have also given me in the distribution business, going at it, being at it. My dad knows how much I called him, how much I bothered him. My mother also knows how much I bothered her in the kitchen, right? Taking a product, this is good, this is not good. She gave her feedback, right? But I think it's just about just being at it, being that perseverance. And I think also one more thing what happens is retailers, like when they see good brands trying to do, they will see, like anybody, they will try to take their pound of flesh. But I think in life, honesty, sincerity, it shows. You can't fake it. You can fake it, but how much can you fake? And I think they see it. And I think it's about how do you then show those practices in everyday practice. And I think that's where it is key. I still believe we are not doing a good job. But I think there's just a lot more to do. So yeah.
Wish you all the best.
Now I invite Mr. Anil Verma, Joint Secretary KMA, for the vote of thanks.
Good evening. I think he spoke about 20-25 minutes and he had to answer 45-50 minutes question and answer session. So that shows that difference, And we know that your body is what you eat, drink and breathe. And really appreciate that, that in interior parts of India, especially to the northern parts, nutrition is just unheard. So he's trying to mix business and nutrition into the interior parts of India. I think that's very appreciable and that is affordable to the common man. Across when they earn maybe 200 or 300 rupees per day, for them to buy a pack of cornflakes or whatever it is just impossible. So to make it by 5 rupees or 10 rupees, that's I think another kind of model and out of the box thinking. Really congratulate and appreciate the entrepreneur and the CEO. And I think that should be very inspirational to the new, the youngsters sitting here. Congratulations. And thank you so much for sharing us. And it was very informative also, not the inspiration also, but very informative also. And as a token of our appreciation, I would request MC member Mr. Deepak Aswani to hand over the moment over to Mr. Prashant.
That's a bigger benefit.
That's innovation. And it's almost 8 o'clock, and thank you everyone, especially the past president, MC members, invited guests, KMM members, and young minds and the students for being here. And thank you once again. Good night.
Let's rise for national anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
My mother started